Good afternoon. Which one are we on? We're on that one. Welcome to Optimum Live. What are we at? Episode 6, Knowing Your Business. And I'm with Mike Blaken. Hello, mate. How you doing?
How you doing, Chris? Yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah, all good.
And this was your idea, this one, coming from a presentation that you did.
Yeah.
An event, I think it was, wasn't it?
That's right. It was at a networking event, and it was just one of those little 10-minute segments that you got to do. And I came up over time. I've just been talking to people, and they don't necessarily understand the terminology with businesses and what each things mean, but also what things you need to do to be able to live and what money you need to do. And so I came up with this idea to explain it through from start to end, so that hopefully people understand it a little bit more.
And I'll be honest that I was looking through both the blog that you wrote about it and the presentation that you had, because I was like, what does that mean? I know my business, surely, which you open up the article with, to be fair. And it's a totally valid point. And we're going to look at several things in terms of how you need to know the ins and outs of your business to be able to get the price setting right, which the detail we're going to go into made me really understand that as well. It's definitely comparing service and manufacturing as well, which is useful. We're then going to look at how we work out, you know, we as owners sort of go, well, ideally, I want to be able to earn this a month or a year or whatever. And we work that out. And we possibly will be able to touch on slightly the element of if I want to sell the business in the future, what do I need to do with it? What does it need to look like for it to be sellable? I think that's the journey we're planning.
Yeah, that's it. And see how much we waffle on and how long we get there, how far we get through it.
We're good at that. We're good at that. We're good at that. Okay, well, let's start with price settings. And I found it really interesting to look at the difference between service and manufacturing and on how we arrive at the price that we should be charging.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a question that seems quite simple, are you a goods-based business, manufacturing, or are you service-based, seems quite an obvious question, and each business owner should know it. However, over time, I've worked with businesses where they had one, then they started a business in the second sector and never appreciated the difference, how you would price and cost base the two businesses. So for a goods-based business, essentially you're looking at how much it takes to buy all the materials and then sell it.
Yeah.
And hopefully you make enough margin that covers all your overheads. But it's each widget, each commodity that you sell that drives the recovery of all your overheads. Your overheads being generally your office wages, your rent, your accountancy bills, your bank charges, all those sort of things need to be covered by a margin made on selling a widget. Whereas a service-based business is based on selling time. You got to sell time at a certain amount of pounds per hour.
Yeah.
And that's got to cover all your overheads. And that depends on how many hours a day you can sell, to what rate you got to do, and it goes on from there.
And I think we're all guilty of undercharging half the time for that, you know, as the confidence grows in your product. And that's the same with service, is the fact that you kind of go, well, what, you know, is it worth that? And then you sort of go, hang on a minute, don't forget your time, whatever you're using, your overheads, etc., etc. And you kind of go, that's what's earning the money to cover that, and then some after that. And in terms of manufacturing, I find it quite interesting in the fact that, which is not my service, but I was absorbing what you were saying about it, that as well as overheads, that is like your everyday expenses, there is like the procurement of the raw materials that go into it as well. So it could vary between your products based on that as well. So it's not an easy job, is it?
No, there'll always be certain products that will cost X, but you use, say, 90% of it because there's a lot more wastage because it's a cheaper product, a little bit more price per unit, but you use 100% of it. So then you factor that in and go, well, which one? So like an example we'll lead into is someone was getting charged an extra £6 a unit, but because they sell best part of 10,000 units a year, the price that they lost out on was huge. And that made an extremely profitable business a loss-making business overnight because they hadn't absorbed that cost change, because it only seemed like a few quid a unit. However, multiply that by what you do, and it's a big number.
And I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Like you say, I mean, the example we had is that I think the phrase you used was overspending by £6 per unit, i.e. it was costing £6 per unit more than it needed to. Which doesn't seem like a big amount.
No.
But I think your figure was that worked out at £21,000 in lost profits per quarter.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. Remember that one? We were just talking it through, and that came down to they buy per weight, so per ton of unit. But they were buying a slightly cheaper one that came with more water in it, which was heavier. But therefore they needed to use more of it. Although it was cheaper, they used 10%, like 1.1 ton, let's say, instead of 0.9 ton. Wow. So that movement just crept it over, and that was equating to so much each unit. And the guy, the owner, just didn't realize how much that was, because £3-4 million turnover business, and you're saying, oh, it cost me a few 5-6 quid a unit more. Well, that's all right, I can absorb that. You can't, because you look at them, and again, conversation I had this morning with a client is, you got turnover, that's one thing, but if your product mix, most businesses sell a multitude of different products. Some with high margin, some with a low margin, and it's the average of all that spits out a figure, and that's what you've done for the year. Okay. But if you change slightly and your turnover goes up, but it's on a lower margin stuff, you think everyone sits around the room going, oh, lovely, turnover's gone up. We've done twice as many sales, but your actual profit, the amount of money you keep, goes down because you sold more of the lower margin stuff than the higher margin stuff. Right. And so it's the whole mix.
What's the phrase? One's vanity, one's sanity.
That's it. And cash is king.
At
the end of the day, you can make profit. Again, working with a business, real good growth. Money hasn't come in from the customers. He's got 10 grand in the bank, but he's owed lots of money. And so it's that it all links together. And so it's you've got to understand your numbers, where they're coming from, but they all link up together. And again, I saw a post on LinkedIn from another accountant saying, focus and reconcile on your balance sheet, what it's called. So you got your profit and loss, which is all your ins and outs of expenses and stuff, and essentially how much money you've made in the year. Then your balance sheet shows you essentially what you've got on the shelf, what you're owed, and what you owe out.
Of course.
But if you don't look at that, you'll forget that one of those numbers should have been over there if you haven't looked at it, and you go, oh, lovely, I made 100 grand profit. Oh, I forgot to recognize 100 grand costs over there because I haven't looked at this. And it shows that all these numbers link up. Now, it's not for you to understand that. That's what we're here for. And that's the biggest thing that we do, is that we communicate that. We talk it through. We let you understand those numbers so that when you get to the end of it, you go, oh yeah, that's there, that does that, and that does that. And then hopefully we all sit around and go, right, you've made more than you wanted to make this year. Jobs are good, and you can pay me an extra fee. No.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, and this, it will probably come up more than once, is that, yeah, I took the quote that says, at Optimum, we take the tech side of the numbers and convert them into information business owners understand. We work with manufacturers as well as service providers, and our goal is always to help our clients improve their business. And I'll be honest and say that I kind of realized I hadn't liaised with you guys on that front, even if you've attempted to tell me stuff. I kind of just went, well, the numbers are the numbers, aren't they? Surely. And it's like, no, there's a lot more story can be told and directions that we can be signposted to than we necessarily realize. And I need to, especially as that I look on, I'll just say my accounting package that I use, so that I'm not, sullying anyone's, because it's great. But I look at the figures where it says, well, run me a P&L report. And it's like going, that doesn't look right, because you guys still have to do some stuff to that afterwards, don't you? And that's where it comes in, the interpretation of that information.
Yeah, that's it. And it leads it then into going, so certain businesses go, right, once you've done all your jiggery pokery, that's fine. But how do I know?
That's a word we don't hear very often, isn't it? Jiggery pokery.
Like it. Account jiggery pokery. You make us look like we know what we're doing. But essentially, like, business owners want to know a figure that they understand. So if I turn around and say, right, X business needs to do £250,000 a month, they go, most of the time they go, okay, that's lovely, but what's that in my language? And you go, well, that's 1,100 cubic meters if you're a concrete company. That's 4,000 pints of beer a month. That's this, that's that. And people then suddenly go, yeah, that's my language. Okay, I can work with that.
Yes.
And that's what we do. That's taking the tech out of it, because you don't need to know how it gets to it. Like, got slides we'll go on to later here that show different things. You don't really need to understand it in the complex terms. If we just go, look, focus on that number. If you focus on that and we've agreed on this end result, it will drop out to there. Don't worry about all the ins and outs and the little sieve system as they drop into different categories. But if you do that, you should get to this on an average year.
No, and I get that. And I mean, with obviously I'm a service provider, so I fall onto that side with visual PR and open doors training with the training provision as well. And I'm starting to sort of like have to really fine tune it now that I've got the business settled and the offering settled. It's like going, well, okay, it's not just, for want of a crass sentence, I'm worth that, as in the company's worth that per hour or whatever. Is you go, no, hang on a minute. I've got this much technology that I've invested in, hardware, software, subscriptions, the know-how. That's the part that the worth part that comes into it, to take the work away from you. But then there's an expense that says, well, I've got people that do video edit, and I've got people that do social marketing for you. I've got this, I've got that, I've got the other. And so actually it starts increasing. And I'm actually having to go back and revisit, because it's like, hang on a minute, I think I've just eroded all of my margin, because there's cost associated with the value add that I'm offering to the clients.
That's it. And with the people see stuff over Instagram, you should charge this because this is what you're worth and stuff. And it's like, yeah, fair enough. And that's right. But you need to start with what it actually costs you.
Yes.
And go, right, that's where it is. Okay, that comes out at £50 an hour. But actually what I'm giving, the value I'm giving to someone, is actually £80 an hour. And that's fine. You can add, I'm not telling people don't go on and add that. But if you know what your cost is, you know what your starting point is. And businesses that grow quickly, yours growing as well, same as others, is that you take on some more overhead. So where we worked out the calculation and overheads was X, 100 grand, let's say. And then you go on to the next year and you think, that's fine. That worked out. I had to do that margin or that charge out rate. But actually you've taken on 3 extra people in the office to do stuff. You got this, you got that subscription, you got that package. Oh wait, my overheads are now 180 grand. So actually there's a point where if sales haven't grown enough, you got to actually increase the rate to cover, because you've built a bigger setup than what you had 2 years ago. Yeah. And then it's so again, with another client, we've done that and gone, your office is 3 times the size as it was last year. You've got, I think he had 15, 16 people in the office instead of 2.
Right.
And it's like, okay, it should be that more overhead. So we'll get into that bit as well. But the overhead, the profit in each hour or each unit should, if you got those people, it's because you're growing. So therefore, the more contributes to it. But if you haven't rechecked it, how do you know? And that's the thing, is that you don't understand. A lot of people go along and go, gut feel, bank balance is going up. Yeah, things are looking good, right? But actually, what is it? Is it going up because you haven't paid someone or that?
Absolutely.
And so it's to understand it.
Yeah, like once you get to the quarterly VAT bill, you suddenly go, "Oh, cash isn't quite as much in there as I thought." Yeah, yeah, I messed up a little bit there.
Yeah.
And it is because, I mean, I've had the example with mine is that your offering kind of does evolve, especially in the early stages of a business like me, which I know is your pet love, working with new and growing businesses. And so you'll see this a lot, is that you kind of go, actually, do you know what? Now that I'm living and breathing this, what I really need to do is add this value add, not as an option. Some of them you try to have as chargeable optional extras, but some of them you kind of go, no, this needs to be part of the offering to make it really stand out. And you go, yep, so that's good. That'll help me get more sales. But you've just added, a big old, some of my examples have been quite a reasonable expense that's added to it, and gone, okay, my margin's just gone.
One of the biggest things that happens in growing businesses, and we see it all the time in trades, so builders, electricians and stuff like that. So you get one guy who's an electrician, really good, really popular, has work for the next 6 months. Okay. So he goes, right, I'll take on somebody. Right. That first hire is usually a labourer for him, pulling the wires through and stuff like that. So that's fine. But then he still has 6 months of work, and he's like, I could do more if I had somebody else. So then you get somebody else in who's a skilled person, and then his hours that he was charging a day, he might have been charging 6 or 7 a day, effectively, drops to 4 because he's managing the team. And then he sat there going, well, why haven't I earned enough? It's like, well, you were charging £60 an hour for 6 or 7 hours a day, and now you're only charging 4. So let's say 2 hours, you lose £120 a day, £60. And you're paying someone else. So if you haven't got enough markup on this guy's wages to cover that, you've gone backwards by growing. And that happens all the times with trades, because quite often with a trade, and I'm not being stereotypical, but they're good at what they do. They are brilliant. So they get busier. They take on people, but they're not people managers and that. And so they grow. And then they're sat around going, well, why am I losing money when I've got more turnover and more people? Because they haven't carried their cost, which was free before, essentially, into the margins and stuff, and they just lose it.
And how do you deal with, again, this is me sort of like going off on very slight tangents. I know we've kind of got a running order, but we're sort of going off on good tangents. How do you deal with business owners that sort of like have that crisis? I'm going to call it a crisis of confidence, that you say, guys, you really need to, let's go with the basic one of up the price per whatever, per hour, per unit, per product, per service, whatever it might be. And they go, yeah, but if I do that, I will lose business, or I won't be able to win as much. How do you, I know it's not your job to deal with that,
the easiest way to do it is so if anyone goes into a negotiation, 9 times out of 10, let's say, you want to have confidence in your stance for your negotiation, right?
Absolutely.
So you need to believe in it. So if you don't believe in it, you go in weak, you come out with probably a reduced price that you started with, right? If it's gone really wrong. So what we do is show you the numbers. Go, look, this is what it is if you keep going at that rate. This is what it is if you increase it by 10%. Let's face it, prices are going up at the moment.
Yeah.
Like everywhere. So you go, right, this is what it could be. And if you show them the first one, they go, well, it doesn't really make it worthwhile staying as I am and earning 10 grand a year for doing all that work, 2,500 hours a year or whatever, like weekends and stuff. Yeah, but that one shows what it's worth. And then all of a sudden they got the confidence to go, well, that's the one I want, right? And if they end up somewhere in between, at least they're better off than where they were. And so it's just the power of information. Show you the numbers, let you understand the numbers and see why we're saying it. I've done it with somebody else. I showed them that. Big firm, showed him what a price rise would do, but showed him why the existing price didn't work, because he'd grown. And I said, look, if you do all that, that's what you're going to make. Is it worth it for the risk you got? He was like, no, absolutely not. I said, so it's got to go up. It's not because I'm coming along trying to make you look all fancy and put you in a position where you increase your
You're not getting greedy with the price increases.
It's because you have to, because of what you want to do. And the guy was like, but I'm not price driven, I'm not money driven. I said, that's fine. I said, but you want to do this, this, and this with it, with the profits. I said, but if you don't make the profits, you can't do that, and therefore you can't give back to the society like you want to do. I said, so you got to make it to open the door to do more.
Yeah.
And it was like, yep, fine. Price rise gone in, all accepted, bar for one, which is negotiation.
Yeah.
But they're a better position now than where they were because of the power of information. They understood where they had to, and it was like, oh, I have to do this to get to the next stage.
Because otherwise the days just sort of roll and roll, the money comes in, the money comes out, and there isn't the full picture. And I get that's what we do. What about, and this really is a tangent of what we got on our order, but what about the other one being about diversification occasionally? And I can use a basic example that someone says, right, if I'm taking on a member of staff that costs me X £100 a day or whatever the heck it is, and fine, I've got my existing products and services, but their skill set could open up doors to additional business. And you go, as long as you're getting what they're being paid a day, would you ever advocate looking at diversification? I know there's a fine line.
No, absolutely. And it's like a business plan. You go, right, I want to take on this person. What's the business plan? You might go, right, actually, I want them to grow my existing business. And therefore you do the numbers and work out, actually, that's going to cost you 15 grand in investment to get to a point where it returns. And you go, well, actually, I can soften that investment by doing something else, which is a quick win, halving his salary costs and putting it back in. So my best friend's a joiner, and he's looking at taking on someone else to do the spray painting instead of him. And he's going, right, that's going to cost me X. I spend there. And he's looked at business case and he goes, right, it's going to cost me £600 a month to take this person on with the other costs. Actually, that's worth it to me because I'll get my weekends back.
Yes.
And that's his return. Okay. So he's looked at it, done a business case. We've had 24,000 phone calls about it because he's my best mate. And we got to a position where we've gone, yeah, I'm going to go and hire him. Right. And that's it. But again, it's having that two-way conversation to talk about it. What does it mean? What does it do? Yeah, that works. And then sometimes you might go, I'm going to do this. And I go, right, you're going to lose 25 grand over 6 months in cash until you get back up. And you go, haven't got that. Okay, well, then that route isn't right for you because you haven't got the resources. Not because it's not right for the business in the long run, but in the short term, you're not going to make it. So let's see how you go around it another way. Have you thought about this? What about that? And you just pull in all these different experiences we got with other clients to go, well, I've seen someone kind of tweak it that way to soften the exposure of cash. You might go part-time to start with, or you might go find someone who's moving jobs or so, go, look, can you do a little bit of freelance work at the weekends just to soften us in until we get there? And then in 3 months' time, I've got you a full-time job. Oh, yeah, brilliant. I'll set out notice. I'll do that. That's all in my contract. That's fine to do. And it's just those things. Oh, I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
And then it comes like premises is one. You look at, is the building next to you better than the one down the road? Can you do it with the same staff, or if it's down the road, I have to have someone else down there? That's another hire. Actually, how do I reduce the cost?
Yeah.
And it's just these little bits of thinking outside the box.
Yeah, I mean, you take the simple one of a serviced office compared to an
Full
office
blown
where
rent,
suddenly
yeah.
it's like, okay, so who's answering the phone?
And that's it. Just to cover you for a bit. And it might mean there's upheaval in 12 months' time when you outgrow it and you need something else.
Yeah.
But you've got to that 12-month period where it opens that next door. And the people that are working with you, they don't mind the upheaval of moving around because they trust in you. They're working with you because they trust the journey you're on, because you would have explained that from the start. This is where we're going.
Yes. No, and you know full well that you're hitting a lot of the buttons on my business, my journey now, where I'm going both with premises and with people and all of those kind of things. And even when you're talking at freelance, outsourcing some work and part-time up to full-time. If and this is really because I'm allowed to say this because I'm outside of Optimum, is that the essence here is that I, as the business owner, don't need to wait to give report, end of year accounts, quarterly, whatever it might be. If I'm there kind of going, I think I need to be able to do this, I should proactively come to you and say, guys, this is what I'm thinking I need to do for one reason or another. And you will be able to look into our accounts for us, then with us, and start looking what we can do and what we should do. Yeah.
And that's a bit that, so accountants should be coming to you with thoughts and processes, like being proactive. But actually, the way I look at it is, if we build up enough trust of a two-way conversation, I'm giving you the seeds to think about. And then when they fester into something, you go, oh, actually, I'll speak to Mike about that. Right.
Yeah.
Because I've already started that conversation 6 months ago that you don't realize of you coming to me. But what that means is you understand the trigger points and things that you go, oh yeah, I'll run that past Mike. I'll run that past John. I'll run that past Ian. Right. Rob, Hannah, like whoever. You can speak to them. Right, because you know that you can pick up the phone and speak to us. It's not one of those where you go, I'll wait till my year-end accounts and then I'll have a conversation with them.
It's too
like,
late, though.
yeah, it's like drop us a message, drop us a call and stuff. And like, there's enough in the team to do that.
Because I'm saying this because I'm realizing I'm guilty of not doing that enough.
Mm.
Because I sort of go, I don't want to trouble you guys. And it's like, no, trouble you guys, because that's where you understand what's possible, how we can make it work. And that's a cool thing. I've kind of gone away on a tangent, but it's like using a real life example here, I guess. Same as we've used that one with, mine's service based, but then manufacturing where you've got raw materials, processes, overheads, logistics. Has got to come into it.
Well, especially nowadays,
Yeah, absolutely.
The cost of delivery in and out of materials as well.
Correct, and that's increasing, all of those sort of things. And you made a comment that said any slight variation, what's going to be it's going to impact it, but you need to make sure that that's a swallowable impact.
You understand the value of it. Do I need to adjust it? Do I need to account for it? Yes or no? No, that's fine. That one's all right. I can't do anything about that one. That one's fixed. I've just increased the right prices. That's stuck for a month, but I know I've got to do it next month. I'll do it then. That's fine. You weather it. But it's just being fluid with it. I know people, when they get the manufactured price rises coming through, they start a price rise sooner rather than later, rather than 3 months' time. So by the time they get there, they're pricing on the new prices rather than going, I'll do it when it increases and it takes 2 months to bed in.
Yeah.
And then there's a 2 month delay. So again, that's what they've worked out. Actually, it works because they understand the numbers. And when they've done it slower before, margins dip.
Yeah.
So now they've learned, that didn't work. We need to do this. And that kind of leads us probably onto these sort of like examples we've got of, and the understanding of these numbers, of what it means and where it changes.
Agreed. And before we do that, because we'll move on to that in a second, because I agree, it's now on to, that's kind of our earnings, what we want. But just to finish off the price setting, is going back to the example we touched on with the manufacturing client of yours, where revenue was great, everything was fine, and then realised that actually there's a change where you're buying. They were buying in weight, and they were selling by volume.
Yeah.
So that's a different.
So there's a conversion there of what you need to do. So you need to understand again what ingredients go into making that mix, what goes in the bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that much. But because of like we talked about the water at the start, because of the weight came in as one thing, but it created a different volume.
Well, this was the point, is that they were getting, again, I've lost the impacts, is that they were getting a lot of wastage, more than they anticipated. And there was 10% underweight. So there was wastage in the process, down to the quality of what they were getting, and it was coming in underweight of what they thought they were getting by 10%. So you were able to look at that, realize the loss that's going on, and so by going out, change suppliers, and increase the quality of those raw materials.
And so just swung the price back.
Yeah, because suddenly more accurate deliveries. That's presumably the supplier issue, and less wastage because the quality of the product itself.
Yeah, and some of it we're not going to, like, those gems, those exact things aren't going to happen just from us. But what we're doing is we're going, right, something here is wrong. So what we did is I said to him, I was like, right, what's your average project mix? Okay, how much do you think it costs you? And they came out with a figure. I said, right, that's fine. So I go and work out what it is off the latest invoices of the cost per unit. And I said, well, you're expecting it's £88. The accounts are coming out with, like, actually, the budget says 94 instead of 88, but the accounts, based on what you produce, came out 105. Right. And then you go, well, that swing and it was the fact that they started with the wrong price. Then in the process, it came out with the wrong mix. I didn't know it was the wrong mix.
No, but
the number per unit they sold equaled that. The numbers don't lie. If I know I got the right closing stock and opening stock, either something's been over-delivered or overcharged for and under-delivered, or something's gone wrong in the mix. They've had some write-offs, they've had some snags, some processes that went wrong. They might have had a batch that broke if it's widgets and didn't work. So that had to be binned. So there's a cost there. You go, well, actually, if we pull that out, the margin got back to normal. So it was all right. It did what it did, bar for that day that it all went wrong. But what it does, again, the power of information, you bring it back and go, right, these are the things that could have happened. What sort of happened in the last month or last quarter? And you start talking to them face to face. Yeah. And little bits pop out and go, oh, we did this. Oh, hang on a minute. You're saying that, right? That equated to 12 grand. Oh, right. And again, I can do maths quite quickly when I'm with a client, so we can do that.
Yeah.
And then they go, oh, what about this? And usually it's a mix of 3 or 4 things. It's never one thing, right? It's never that simple, right? Because business, you can spot one big thing with a neon sign going, oh, this is more expensive, right? It's never that. It's a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. But we can just talk it through. And then what they do is they went off. The next day they came back and was like, 3 o'clock in the morning, I worked out. It was that. Oh, brilliant. There we go. There
Whereas
you are.
they wouldn't have known to think about it and go looking for
they
it.
didn't. They were buying, they were making, they were producing,
Yeah.
it was installing, customers were happy, everyone's good. And it's just, it evolves. And it's just working with each other, having those conversations with those guys. I meet with them every month, do the management accounts for the month. We sit down, have a conversation, have a review. What's happened? Oh, something's wrong here. We've got another one that, again, the margin keep going up and down. And we got into their system. And we think it's a closing stock issue, where there's how much they're saying at the end of the month they've got on the shelf is different to actually what it actually is. And so we're looking at that and how that works. But again, that's a bit of a process. That's been sort of 9 months on and off trying to work out what it is.
Yeah.
And then last month we just looked at it a completely different way. It was like, look, I'm getting fed up with this, but we're not getting the answer. Numbers don't lie. So what is it? And we just got into it a different way, got stuck in the system, and we popped out a little bit of a result that what it might be.
I love that. I do. I just love the fact that not only have you then got there, it's an area that we might not even have known to go looking at.
Like numbers are puzzle. Like with accounts, it's all puzzles, but it's puzzles that you know the piece. Unlike written text or so, you don't know what the end is, right? So that's why I don't like written word, because I don't know what the end is. I can't write it. It's not fine. But a number, I know what I'm getting. It always has to get to something.
Yes.
So if it doesn't drop out what you expect, you should be able to work out why. And then we can go down that route and get it.
I like it. Seeing the hard time you get when you're at networking.
Oh no!
There's another account.
Oh, another one in the room.
Yeah. you're like detective, basically. That's
it.
The number detective.
I'll get the magnifying glass out, off we go.
So that price setting does lead into this next bit in reality, because that as a business is that you're trying to make sure it's sustainable. You're trying to make it profitable, unless you're a not-for-profit or something like that, is that the idea is that you're supposed to make profit, even if you're reinvesting it back in or whatever. However, as business owners, the ones of us taking the risk and all of those kind of things, is that we unashamedly are there going, I want to earn a certain amount of money. I want to be able to go and do these particular things. I don't think it's dirty, to say that. No. We do find it that way, don't we? But definitely. It's not. Now, that is important to sort of I like that you've turned it on its head and go, well, what are you looking to earn and by different milestones? We actually need to turn it on its head. And I'm going to bring up on screen, because we've got 3 great examples here. And I'm going to start with this one. And you're now looking at the paperwork. Hopefully you're looking at the right one.
Yeah, that's what I was just checking.
I'll put it up to full screen on ours as well. So this, in its basic terms, is that, and I'll do the quick synopsis so that we know that a dummy like me can get it, is this company got a turnover 178.5 grand a year. We've worked out that they're making a 35% margin, so their cost of sales is 116 grand, so gross profit of 62.5. The director's salary, i.e. the tax-free amount that's going to class as salary, 12.5. Overheads of 20 grand, so that leaves us with 30 grand after that, coming off at 62.5. Corporation tax on that profit of 6 grand, so that means that we get 24 grand's worth of profit after the tax. So we've then put that as dividends of £24,000, taken off the tax on those dividends, and it means that the take home for the owner in this example, in the back pocket, 34.5 grand.
Yep.
I analysed that correct?
Perfect.
I'm impressed.
There we go. I've taught you well.
You have. But we then turn around and go, well, actually, I would like to earn more than that.
So before we jump on, like I say, just before we jump onto that one, just so people can understand some of where the numbers are coming from. So this is based on a goods-based manufacturing kind of business. Buy something, you sell it for a premium after doing something to it. Okay.
Yep.
So we talk about gross profit margin. So some people don't always necessarily know what that means. So the way I talk about it is, for every pound you receive from a customer, ignoring the VAT, you keep 35 pence of it after you paid your direct costs, which is usually your material costs. Sometimes that includes your direct labor, so your staff who are physically working on the stuff.
Yep.
But if we take that into account, so this example, for every pound they're keeping 35 pence of it, then that goes towards the overheads. Okay. So that margin, that 35 pence per pound, that's got to cover the overheads, the tax bill, and your dividends for you to get what you want. So that's where that number drives to. So some people different people call it different things.
Yeah.
We would call it gross profit, right? But over time, you might have called it something else. So what I try to do is check that we're talking the same terminology.
Yeah.
When you say one figure, what is it? Okay, it's that one, right? I know what you're talking. I'll try and talk back in the way that you do, because then that you understand it.
Yes,
rather than going, oh, actually, no, you're talking about net profit, but I'm going to keep going back, but now I'm going to confuse you, and then you're not going to understand it, and then you're not going to listen. So it's like going back, right? What do you call it? Right, let's go with that, and building it back in. So that's where the margin comes from. And then it's key to remember that for people taking dividends, it's an after-tax payment, after corporation tax.
Yeah.
So you got to take that into
account. That's
account.
where I got unstuck. Going back a little bit, is that I got it the wrong way around and suddenly had a director's loan.
Yeah, because you take out, in that example there, you would have you had at the end of the year, if you hadn't taken anything in the whole 12 months, you would have 30 grand in the bank account.
Yeah.
But actually 6 grand of that is a liability that's not due for payment yet, that you're not allowed to take.
Yes.
So then because that's what people get excited about. They go, oh, I've got money in the bank, I'll take it. Don't have to pay tax for the first 18 months. You don't, but you're accruing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's the bit to understand there. So with that, 178k in this example nets them 34.5 grand on the bottom. Okay,
that's salary plus dividend minus tax.
Personal tax. So that should be what's left over. If it was all paid and dusted in the 12-month period, that's what they get.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what leads on to is going, right, so, but what do you want it to be? Is 34.5 grand actually what you want from the year? If it is, everything's ticking over nicely for you. But what about if you needed to invest in some kit? Some kit sits up on the shelf that's not part of these numbers. So we need to consider that. But also, what if you want a pay rise? What if you actually, kids are getting more expensive, the mortgage is going up or something? Yes. Mine's the kids get more expensive, definitely. But if you go to the next one, it's like, so how much do you have to turn over based on the current setup of the business to earn you some more? So this one, we increase it from 34.5 grand to just shy of 47,000 pounds in the back pocket.
Yeah.
But to do so, they need to do an extra 50,000 pounds worth of sales. So 50,000 pound increase in sales for 12,400 pounds more in their back pockets.
Yeah.
And it's suddenly like, whoa, that's quite a jump, because to get 50,000, 65% goes on material costs to keep your 35 pence in the pound.
Yeah.
Then your tax has gone up. Then you got more dividends, so your dividend tax has gone up. So everyone's taken a bit along the way. Like you think of water coming down with a few sort of spouts off, disappears, and there's a little bit left at the bottom.
Yeah,
right?
Not much, exactly.
And so so in this example, it's quite like you've got, and you think that 50 grand, okay, so some businesses isn't very much. In this example, it was nearly a 30% increase, probably 28% increase. Well, that's putting like that's a big jump from where you were.
Therefore, a lot of pressure on you for 12.5 grand a year. So £1,000 a month.
Yeah, that's it. Well, that might go from someone doing 40 hours a week to 60 hours a week to generate that income.
Yeah.
And that's where, so I learned over time with having the kids, is actually it's not all about the money, because is it the time?
Yes.
There's that balance of which it is and what does it. So I used to go sit in the room and go, right, let's get some more money. That was before I had kids. And then it's like, let's have a bit of time off. Then the kids get a bit older and it's like, let's have some more time in the office.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's the key thing, is that, you look there, is that pressure, the hours and everything. You go, right, do I want to give that for an extra £1,000 take home? I mean, obviously it's not a small amount to sniff at, but it's all about making that, decision. And would it be putting the business at risk to try and go and take that? Are you able to, probably a really silly question now, are you able to do it the other way round, where, in this example here, we now know from these maths is that the back pocket is 46.9. Could you turn around and go, right, I want to have 50 grand? Are you able to work them from the bottom of that table upwards?
Yeah, easily. That's what
really?
I call it. I don't know whether right or wrong, I call it bottom up.
Yeah.
So literally start at the bottom, go, what is it you want to earn? We'll get to the top. And a prime example, I did this 8 years ago is when I started doing it, because I was working with a gym. They wanted to say earn 2.5 grand each. There was 3 of them.
Mm.
So we put 7.5 grand of dividends at the bottom of the month, worked it all the way back up, their tax, company tax, the overheads, got to a sales price, divide that by the number, the average price of a membership, came out like 450 members, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you've only got planning permission for 300. So you're never, ever going to get there to earning that. You're going to be on this wheel going, want to earn more, want to earn more, want to earn more. They're never going to get there because they're going to hit capacity each time.
Absolutely.
So then what that done is not a, oh, we'll just give up now. It's a, so how do you go about getting that level of turnover from your existing asset? So then they brought in merchandise. They brought in a little
You were going to
cafe.
stop at merch then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Down with the kids.
You got me.
Yeah.
And they brought in these different things. They did some off-site courses, like like boot camp classes and stuff like that. Like, what can they do? Oh, we can go and use that bit of land over there, and we can charge a premium for a service. That brought some extra money.
Diversification.
That's it, exactly that. Sometimes you get forced to it if you need to put the price up, because otherwise they were looking and going, well, it's not going to net us enough for the 3 of them. And then it went to 2 people, and actually what they were earning for 2 people, it was generating that, and that's how, then the business was able to tick along. But without that information, it didn't know what it needed to do or what it can. And you just end up, business owners naturally go on this hamster wheel, going round and round and round, attempting to get over there, but it can never get there.
No,
they're chasing that carrot.
Well, I had that as an example with me. I sat down with a good friend, Paul Holmes, and he sort of said, okay, what do you want to earn? And I gave a figure. And he said, well, okay, well, let's work back on what you're doing at the moment. When I really first started the business and had gone in what I now know was like way too low. And he said, you do realize you're going to have to do X number of those every single day to earn that. Are you planning to do that? And I went, no,
exactly,
not a chance. I mean, that just wouldn't work. And he went, well, there you go. I mean, where do you want to sit? And it's like, and you know, there's multiple ways you can work it out. It's like, how many are you prepared to do, and et cetera, et cetera. But it's about analyzing. I sat there. It's very easy to fall into the trap. And again, I'm sure some viewers are going to go, what an idiot for thinking this way. But very easy to kind of go, well, by the looks of what I'm offering and looking around at the rest of the market, there's a trap that we can fall into, is that I think that I probably need to be charging something like this. And not doing any of the equations that we're talking about here. But I guess one of the big things, and we got another slide to look at yet, is that one of the big things that I'm taking out of this is that it's not too late to revisit that.
Never. No. It's never too late. And like for yourself, as you grow, like we talked about, the set work and stuff that you do, the little bits that you can sub out to someone else, does that mean that you can get a higher price on your time? You're the valuable asset here with your knowledge and your experience. You need to do those things that generate X, but can the other bits be done by somebody else? And is that a better return?
And can those people add additional chargeable services
in another way
that I probably could have now, but just do not have the resource to add that?
And I think in society nowadays, the biggest commodity is time.
Yeah.
People are all busy. Everyone's rushing around. There's so much availability to do stuff, whether that's personal things, jumping on a flight to France for a weekend or something like that. You can do that. You couldn't do that 20 years ago, right? Yeah. So there's more availability stuff. There's more pressure on time. So therefore, you've got to get the most out of your time that you can for your business. And so if you go, well, actually, I'm going to work 4 hours a day, I need to generate that. Okay, but I'm not going to be able to do that. So I need something else to help me get to that, to make it work for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you go back on the hamster wheel, going round and round. And we're all culprit for it, I myself included. You naturally jump on the hamster wheel because you go, yeah, we'll just chase it. Let's just go. And then you need somebody to go, oi, hang on a minute. Where are you? Where are you going? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And everyone needs that sounding board, that other person, right? A lot of clients I say are in business on their own. Who do you talk to? Is it the brick wall next to you? Or do you speak to your wife? Oh, no, I don't speak to the wife. I don't want to trouble her with the business.
Yeah.
I said, so it literally is the wall next to you? Yeah. I said, well, give me a ring. Yeah. I said, let me be your sounding board. I said, because you just need to air it out. You need to get it out, say it out loud. And sometimes I don't even have to say anything. Just having that ability to talk out loud. You go, cheers, solved it, off you go. Right? I do it the same. I'll go next door and speak to Tracy and go, oh, brilliant, thanks for that. And she just sat there looking like,
What
what just happened?
There was a whirlwind just appeared in my office.
Yeah, and it disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he went away happy. Tick.
Exactly. And it is that, I think I'm doing okay by noting things down and thinking it through and maybe researching, because we've got great resource of searching everything and then paralysis by analysis and everything else. And so many different opinions, whereas yours is a bit more factual in reality. It just pays to do that, because I'm relating to this a lot more than we probably intended for me to do, in all honesty, and I get it, and I definitely need
Bills
to,
in the post.
Yeah, I need to be coming that. Well, you've just guaranteed yourself more time to spend with me now. We need to work this one out. So let's move on to slide 3 on this one. That then turns around and says, what if we actually increase the margin? So we're going back to the price set, and I said there was a crossover for this one, and this particular equation, I almost feel that there should have been a 4th slide here as well, which there isn't, but this was going back to the original take home. So okay, we're happy to sit at 34.5 grand take home, and you've basically impacted the figures above that, haven't you? That turns around and says
everything else stays the same, but instead of getting a 35%, keeping 35 pence in the pound, 35% margin, you get a 50% margin. So essentially, in this example, the owners looked at the business and either improved what he's buying by quality or price or value for money, right? Or he's looked at the process and gone, actually, I bought a machine, we can factor the price in elsewhere, right? And gone, I can make it twice as quick or something like that.
Yeah.
And going, how do I make this quicker and get better value? And so with that, they either aren't working as hard for the same money because they've worked out and gone, I didn't like the last example where I got to 200 plus grand turnover. That was hard going.
Well, if I link back to the first one, it was 178,500 for the same take home, whereas this one is 125.
That's it. So it's a 50k drop because he's been clever with what he's doing to get the same money.
Yeah.
And that it's, what is it like? So understand the numbers. What can you do? Some people, it isn't as easy. I was chatting to the client this morning, first thing. And he's like, well, the price is dictated by the manufacturer. I said, that's fine. So you just got to work out if you can do price, get bigger discounts by economies of scale. Can you afford to do it? How do you tweak that price? You are in control of it ever so slightly. Some of it you're not. But then if you're not, how do you do the value add?
Yes.
How do you increase the extra margin by a value add, a diversification, something different?
Which is what I love about this. And in actual fact, I've just realised there could be multiple, which is probably why you bailed out and went, look, there's multiple different ways we could go. Is that you've gone with the take home exactly the same in the pocket, but instead of 178,500, because we've got slicker, we've reduced our costs, we've become streamlined, is that we now actually only need to have a revenue of 125 grand. So that, as we say, 53,500 less, and get exactly the same amount of money. So less pressure. That could equally be, well, what actually would my take home be if the turnover, sorry, I keep going between the wrong ones, was still 178.5 grand, but we're now at a 50% margin instead of 35, then suddenly that back pocket figure's higher.
Yeah, that's about, I don't know, 90, about 28 grand more, take off the tax of 20. That's probably 23 grand, 22 grand extra in the back pocket.
It's Rain Man.
This is where someone's going to comment later, go 90 miles out. But for this example, we'll say it's about 22 grand because there's no more overheads for that, so it doesn't disappear. So the only way it's disappearing is corporation tax goes up, so roughly 20-21%, depending on what scale you're at. Then your 9% dividends. Okay, then you might be pushing into higher rates. So then you go into more tax planning examples, which we can have another episode of things you can do. But that's it. If you put an extra pound on the turnover, it drops all the way to the bottom.
Well, this is where I'm sort of like going, these slides you were focused on, if you get more streamlined and you're bringing down your costs or whatever, you're getting, more, I don't like to say cheaper, but
value for money.
Yes, on your raw materials or whatever it might be, then we're increasing the margin, and we haven't even gone the route of, well, actually, look, what about if you do increase the price of what you're doing because everything else has changed? You've now got a holistic view of what's going on.
Yep.
Well, suddenly that changes that turnover figure again. The margin's bigger.
Yeah. And that's it. And like, again, we've talked about this as a goods-based business. There's probably a load of people watching that have got service-based industries, but treat it the same way. Efficiency. That we talked about being more efficient, more slicker, more better in our process. Maybe that's slicker in buying stuff at a better price. But can you, where you were originally charged, someone was spending 6 hours to do a job, if they're a service-based business, what if we do add certain things that enables them to do it in 4 hours? Well, then you increase the efficiency. You increase how, like, that person can then do an extra job with extra profit in it than they would before, because they've got better, they got more efficient. So that involves training. Can you do any training to make your staff quicker? Can you bring any systems in that, yes, there's an upfront cost, like we're bringing a new system in now, but hoping to reduce it, like, or not have to hire an extra person as a salary.
Yeah.
Because the tech's not do it. We're not looking to reduce salaries. We're just like, we need to grow, but can that software cover that? And make it and make a better return.
Yeah.
And that's where it leads into with a service-based business is you're selling hours. Service-based businesses sell hours, right? Accountants sell hours. You sell hours to some degree because that's your commodity, right? But you sell it in a package.
Correct. Yeah.
But underneath, it costs you so many hours. So and that's where Paul's talking to you, going, you have to, at this price, you have to do that many, which is a 12-hour day. And you go every day, and you're like, well, that doesn't work.
No.
Because it's based on time, right? So you're all selling hours, just in different ways. So if you understand sort of how you can either do the same outcome with less hours, you've increased your efficiency, you've increased your margin, you've increased your profit, and hopefully it all drops into your back pocket after the tax man's had his bit.
Or, you know, and this is, we're being quite specific here, is that it might be that you choose that you want to be able to grow and additional premises, additional acquisition of some other business, because it's actually complementary and is going to be, well, if you've got that extra revenue, that extra profit, then you've got the money to be able to, it basically gives you options.
Yeah,
I think that's
and it's that understanding it. What does that do? What can we do? So one of the best examples on the service base that I've had is I thought I pulled the mic out then. Is I had a Land Rover mechanic back in my old job. Okay, he was brilliant. He had work coming out of his ears. They were all filled up his forecourt. He had Land Rovers queuing up. He was the guy to go to. And he would sit with me. He goes, mate, I'm not making any money. I was like, I know, I can see that. And so we worked, and he kept telling me things. It's like, well, you're busy. People like you. You're charging a fair hourly rate. So it's like in line with the market for a specialist as a Land Rover. So that seems right. I'm not sure what's going on. So I told him to do timesheets just for a couple of weeks. And I said, put down how many hours you're selling on a job. I said, don't do how many you've worked, because we've all established he works 12 hours a day. Right? So I said, how many hours are you putting down to doing a job? I said, even if it's like a service, he had a fixed price, but just write down how many hours it actually you worked. Right? He worked out he was charging out 2 hours a day.
Wow.
Even though he was doing 12. So his efficiency was terrible. Yeah. Right. And so that highlighted him to go, oh, wow. And so we had another conversation. It's like, right, so how do we increase it? What in that day? And I was picked out a day and go, right, what went wrong on this day? Where did all your time go? He's like, well, I drive down, take the car to an MOT, pick up a coffee, come back. I said, so that MOT that you made £5 on cost you 2 hours of time.
Wow.
I was like, so you got £2.50 an hour for that time? He's like, ooh, wow. So we changed that. The MOT, because he put so many MOTs through, they came and collected the car and dropped it off and they'd done the ferrying around.
Yeah.
So he saved 2 hours a day. £60 an hour was £120 a day saved instantly if he could work on it. But to make that, he had to exchange that for actually working on a customer's vehicle.
Of course, yeah.
So he explicitly done that. That was it. Shut the door. And then he was like, well, I spend a lot of time ordering parts on the phone with customers. So he hired a receptionist.
I was going to say, like,
got the receptionist in. Paid it was like, now it'd be £11.44 if it was minimum wage, 12, 13 quid an hour, something like that. Paid her that, but every hour he paid her, he earned £60 an hour. So he had a return of that. And I said, look, if you can get to 5 hours a day, you'll make some good money. And he got to 6.5 because he understood the value of his time. And then it's that whole thing of when you bring in the extra staff, how much of your time comes down that's got to be covered by them because you're managing. And that's where you get managers, and you get this big conglomerate. But it all has to work. But it was literally, again, how do we do it? We just sat it down and showed him what happened. Just being completely and utterly practical. No textbook saying it or anything like that. It's going, right, what is your example? What happened? And he understood it. And the other thing was he had a whole lockup of parts he didn't realise. he goes, I thought there was only a couple of grand in there, but there was a hell of a lot more. And he just kept buying stuff because he couldn't bother to walk down the bottom yard.
Yikes. But it got that focus on everything, and that's the key thing. I mean, I think we've run out of time to go into great detail about if you wanted to build the company to sell it. I mean,
I think what we'll do is that's another episode in itself. We can talk, and there's someone else we can bring in on that we can talk about, just little points about what we're looking at. And again, it works from the numbers, because the main bit is you got to show someone else that you don't need to be in the business. That's the biggest crucial bit. But we can go into sort of that, I think, on another episode itself and talk about that, because I think that
because you need to be thinking that well in advance, don't you?
Well, I think again, you need to know how you're getting out of business when you get into it. Why are you doing it?
Yes.
Are you getting into your business to just earn a living? If so, that's fine.
Lifestyle
and at
business,
and at the end, you close the door when you retire, and that's fine, right? Nothing wrong with that at all. Do you want an exit? Is your pension part at the end when you sell it? If so, your route is different. You've got to grow it in a different way. And so we did it, my wife as well. We did it. We bought a business, but we didn't really know why we were buying it. It was an opportunity came up, and we went and bought it, and it was the wrong thing because we didn't know how to get out of it. We didn't know what we wanted from it. So now every time we do something, so she's opening a shop now next week. Why are we doing it? Oh, we wanted this, we want to do that, we want to increase this, and we want this flexibility. And does it do that? Yeah. Well, then this is the right business opportunity. We know how we're going to get out of it. We know what we're going into it for. We know what we're getting out of it. And we talked with other people doing acquisitions. How are you going to get out of it? What's the aim for it? What do you want from it? Yeah. And then that will even drive the price, because it's what it's worth to you then.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can. Yeah, I think we'll do that on another one.
A whole other subject in general. Then I like it. Well, hopefully bringing it back. The subject was, do you know your business? And as you say rightly in the article that you've got on the Optimum website, is that you go, it sounds like a silly question, sounds like a potentially cheeky question. And the reason it's been asked is not, do we know our business? And it's like, yes, I know what I'm doing, I know how to do it, etc. That's not the point. It's like, right, what are the costs? Are there costs at the best they can be? Are the prices the right that they should be for what we want to earn, that keeps it a viable proposition, that gives us an exit at the end? And you guys are able to stand back and look at those figures with no emotional investment in it, and kind of look at those things. And we as businesses are generating that data every day for you to find the answers, basically.
Exactly that. Yeah. And once you understand it, you know what you go and do.
In theory at least. Yeah. That's the plan, isn't it? That's the plan. I think that sums it up brilliantly, and brings us to a nice conclusion, in my opinion, on that one.
Yep.
Anything that we've missed out that you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so. No, again, you can use these numbers as much as looking historically, but also forecasting what it needs you to do going forward. So no, other than that, no, all good.
I love it. Well, thank you for those of you that watched. And of course, if you've watched live, you'll have been going on the journey with us. It's still available to watch afterwards on your YouTube channel, Facebook page, and LinkedIn page as well. And you can catch up with that. Any questions that come up as a result of watching this, please do get in touch with the guys. Let me just add an additional banner, is that I'm going to drop you in it because it's you that's been on this show.
Yep.
Blaken at OPTPS, Optimum Professional Services.co.uk, and you can ask any questions at all. Even if you're not a client at the moment, don't hesitate. You can still ask.
I get messages on LinkedIn following people watching it, and that's fine. Send me questions. Happy to talk through and ask that.
And that's the key one as well. Yes. So on wherever you're watching, you can ask the questions from there as well. If it happens to go a while without someone responding because it's not been seen, then drop a line on the email instead. They'll be happy to answer the questions, and I'm speaking from experience as a client of theirs. And there'll be various clips that will be going up on social media once we've put those together and everything. Mike, thank you so much. Really useful. I've been actually learning whilst interviewing you, so that makes it even better. So thank you for that.
No, that was good. I enjoyed that. Good.
Magic. So we'll see you in a month's time, and we should sort of a week or so beforehand be able to schedule that, letting you know what this subject's going to be. But for now, thanks for watching Optimum Live.